This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Have a seat for this one. We're going to talk about ZIKLAG, which is a national Christian movement political action committee masquerading as a tax-free charity in order to try to get out the vote and try to swing the election in order to have dominion, Christianity have dominion over all spheres of U.S. life. Okay, this is not dystopic. This is their action plan as reported by ProPublica. ZIKLAG, which is basically founded by 40 of the wealthiest Christian donors in America, including the family that owns Hobby Lobby, the Greens, the family that owns Uline or had owned Uline Packaging, the Uline family, the family that owns Jockey Underwear. All of those families have gotten together along with others, net worth into the billions of dollars, and set up this entity called ZIKLAG, also known as USA Transform. Hold on to the word trans there for a minute, because I'm going to tell you what that refers to. Why is it called ZIKLAG? Because ZIKLAG in the Bible is the place where where David and his soldiers sought shelter while they were having their fight with King Saul. So they think that's what they're doing. They're trying to fight for the soul of America. In fact, this organization and all those that believe in Christian fundamentalism and the Christian national movement want to take over what they refer to as the 7 mountains in American society. And they want to have dominion over all 7 mountains. The mountains are arts and media, business, church, education, family, government, science, and technology. Those are the 7 mountains, and they will not rest until they get a candidate like Trump who's willing, in order to get elected, to give them whatever they want as part of their agenda. That is the Christian nationalist movement writ large through ZIKLAG, and what they're doing and why it violates likely the laws under tax-free charities, what we refer to as 501c3, which is what they are, is because if you're a 501c3 entity, you are not supposed to be overtly political. In particular, let me read to you from the statute, from that particular requirement. Under a 501c3, if that's what you are, and that's what ZIKLAG or USA Transform says it is, you are absolutely, quote, prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective office. That's from the IRS. That's from the IRS rule. So then I think ZIKLAG has a lot of explaining to do, and all of its founders, based on the ProPublica expose, because they have 3 major sub-organizations within ZIKLAG, one called Checkmate, one called Steeplechase, and one called Watchtower. And listen to what each of these do. Checkmate is to support, through millions of dollars of investment and fundraising by these Christian billionaires, is supposed to support these phony election integrity groups. These groups that are going around trying to make it harder on average people, on everybody, to vote. Make it harder to do mail-in voting. Make it harder to do drop box voting. Make it harder to do absentee voting. Shorten early voting times. Stretch the line so long that Democrats drop off the line and don't vote at all. That's Checkmate. That sounds a lot like an entity that's trying to directly participate in the political process in violation of the IRS guidelines. They should pull their, if this is true, which it appears to be, they need to pull their ticket and make them start paying taxes. All right. Second, steeplechase. It's what it sounds like. We often refer to in the democratic spheres of black churches, almost primarily Democratic, voting in large numbers and making sure their members get to the polls. It's often referred to as souls to the polls. Well, this right-wing, primarily white Christian nationalist movement, spearheaded by ZIKLAG, wants to have churches and pastors get their people to the polls. They figured out that in certain states, the winning margin for Joe Biden the last time around was like 12,000, 20,000, 75,000. So their goal, as written in their own materials obtained by ProPublica, is let's get to 150,000. Let's double whatever the margin was that we need to turn this election in our favor and give it to Trump. Why? because Trump has basically, in their minds, promised them dominion over the 7 mountains, including education, God help us, no pun intended, over technology, over government. They don't want a separation between church and state. They pull out of old texts of the Supreme Court rulings from the past that we're a Christian nation. And they want to restore that. Their goal is to win the spiritual battle, right? And to restore biblical structure. Listen to these words, biblical structure to the United States, right? And to inject into U.S. culture Christ. That is their tenets. So steeplechase. And the last one of their group that also shows that they violate 501c3 and should be paying taxes, checkmate, steeplechase. And the last one is Watchtower. And Watchtower is one where they use wedge issues to trigger voters in their voting block to go out and vote. Fear-mongering, right? Boogeyman under the bed in the form of back to transgender rights, gay rights, masquerading as parental rights, and a total anti-transgender LGBTQ platform. Wake up, log cabin Republicans who happen to be members of that group, LGBTQ+. Working against you is ZIKLAG and the Christian Nationalist movement, which is supporting Donald Trump and trying to get this election in his favor to give them the dominion over the 7 mountains. That should scare the crap out of anybody and motivate them to vote in the right direction and bring other people with them to vote in the right direction. So you got all those 3 things. And they got a lot of explaining to do. ZIKLAG, or the USA Transform Group, that also works in conjunction with Turning Point USA and the Alliance Defending Freedom and all these other highfalutin sounding entities that all trace back to Leonard Leo, the Federalist Society, and by extension, Ginny Thomas and Clarence Thomas on the United States Supreme Court. Hobby Lobby, you know all you need to know about them. Sam Alito frequently attended dinners at the Green's house where they discussed in advance, this is the reporting, they discussed in advance the Supreme Court positions. So you got to call out, and I commend ProPublica for calling them out in this expose, this entity. When I first saw it, I was like, what the AF is ZIKLAG? And why don't I know anything about it? And I need to talk about it with the audience here on Legal AF and on the MeidasTouch Network. With a growing family, making sure I know everyone in my life is taken care of in case disaster strikes is more crucial than ever. I can never know life's next turn, and life insurance helps provide peace of mind. That's why I chose Policy Genius. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It makes choosing the right policy for your family easy and quick. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. Their award-winning agents can even walk you through the process step by step. Policy Genius has no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Don't take my word for it, though. Policy Genius has thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/legalaf or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/legalaf. How do you counterbalance this? How do you keep our society as the founding fathers wanted? It's secular. You want to be religious and pious? That's great. You want to live your gospel? More power to you. Whatever your gospel may be, or no gospel. Okay, that's the country that we live in. But then to have this right-wing Christian fundamentalist, nationalist philosophy trying to get into power and co-opt the American culture as we know it and reshape it in biblical structure, to paraphrase their terms, should be enough, not just to scare you. I'm not here to scare, to scare you on a hot take. I'm here to call it out and to remind you that this is a participatory democracy. This is a contact sport. We got to get up and out. Go find your local party position. Go volunteer to host something in your home, to go and work a phone bank, to go work in voter registration in your community. Even if your community is red, if you can chip away at the totals, it helps. Or go to a state, top 5 battleground states, and help those people there. You don't have to be a registered voter in those states in order to register other people to vote. And be part of the counter to quote unquote election integrity groups, which are all BS. Be a poll watcher. I went down to Florida 4 years ago, and I went back to my old community in Coral Gables, Florida. Went to the Coral Gables Library where I used to vote. I couldn't go inside because I wasn't a registered voter in Florida, but I could be outside as a poll watcher in the parking lot to make sure things went well and communicated it to people that I needed to communicate it to. And so I did that. I got on a plane and I flew down to Florida and did that. And so there's a version of that, and a cost-effective version of that everybody can do. That's why we talk about the intersection of law and politics so much here, and to give hope about how to combat it. We've got time. It is July. Pennants in the baseball world are not won in July. They're won in November. Same thing with elections. We've got time. But you got to get up. You got to open the window. You got to stick your head out and say, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And I'm going to do the following. And if we all do that, then when I do reporting and hot takes in November 6th, for example, good things will come out of it. I assure you. If you can bring 4 or 5 other people with you to the polls and ensure that they vote, absentee, mail-in, early voting, whatever it is, it will have a positive compounded effect, I assure you. I've done it in the past. Obama is president, not because of me, but I certainly did a lot to help get him elected. And I want to be able to say the same thing. You don't want to look back on November 6th and say, why didn't I knock on one more door, make one more phone call, help one more friend, register one more voter? Why didn't I? Don't do that. These margins are going to be razor thin. 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 in some of these battleground states. Every vote matters. ZIKLAG. Remember it. Have it in your back pocket, the back of your mind when you need to have a conversation about it with other people. And that we are not a country that's supposed to have a unity of church and state. And if that's okay with you, then you just sit back and do nothing. If it's not okay with you, let's get moving. And I'm going to continue to follow things at the intersection of law and politics right here on the MeidasTouch Network. And on a hot take like this, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. It helps signal that you want this kind of content coming to you. And then we do our podcast. Now you know why we call it Legal AF. If you don't, join us on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and you'll find out. We curate the top 4 or 5 stories at the intersection of law and politics and bring it to you the only way we know how. This way, unvarnished, unplugged, unfiltered, sometimes unhinged, in the interest of our progressive politics, period. And so until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, right here on the MeidasTouch Network, it's Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.